So my name is Lucinda Zimmerman. I'm the co-chair of the Seed Library of Los Angeles. We're really excited to have all of you here. For those of you that have not been to a Slowly meeting before, we're a group that's dedicated to distributing heirloom non-GMO seeds to people here in Los Angeles, and also encouraging and educating seed savers. We meet the third Saturday of every month, and we have different speakers and different kinds of lessons on seed saving. Really quickly, I want to thank Julie Mann for letting us use the Learning Garden here. This is the whole facility here is the Learning Garden. That's a separate organization. And I also wanted to thank Sarah Eller from Occupy Venice, who helped initiate getting our speakers here today. If any of you are more interested in learning about SLOLA, in the back there's Patty and Sarah, and they have information about becoming a member. I know it's a little hard to see them, but if you stop back there and ask, we're happy to answer any questions about our organization and to help you become a member and a seed saver. So right now I'd like to call up Rachel Linden. She is the co-tour director for the Institute of Responsible Technology, and she's going to introduce our speakers here today. And our musician. Thank you.
Hello, Venice. Thank you for coming here today when I know you have the option of the ocean just a few feet this way. So thank you. It's a hot day, so hang in there with us, okay? I won't take much of your time. I just want to say hello and say that we are part of a larger tour in California. We are here to promote education behind the scenes for Proposition 37, which is a proposition that would allow a labeling and require labeling for non-GMO products. And so
GMO products.
GMO products, excuse me. Yeah, non-GMOs, they have to fend for themselves for labeling. So yes, labeling GMO products. What I'd like to do is introduce our musician on tour with us right now. This is Rob Herring. Rob Herring is featured on KPFK radio, and he was just at Rock Nature in Germany. So good guy. He's got some great music. We'll start with him, then we'll move on to a couple speakers from the Institute for Responsible Technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. It's great to be out here today. This is a beautiful place. I started following Jeffrey Smith's work a couple years ago, and he's doing, if you don't know him, by the end of today you will be inspired by the work that he's done, and he's helped raise a lot of awareness and education about this whole GMO topic, which you're going to learn a good bit about today. And right now we're particularly pushing because we have this big vote coming up. So I wrote this song a couple years ago called Question What's Inside. It's a goofy little ditty about genetically modified foods, and I wanted to put it into a format that people could share it with their friends and family without having to feel like they needed to preach, because I know that sometimes can be, you know, it feels like didactic and you're trying to control, and I've been in those conversations. So I have a little music video you can check out online. It's you could check me out on therobherring.com. I have cards I can give out to anybody, and the music video is online. You can pass it around to your friends. If you download on iTunes, it's 50% goes to the Institute for Responsible Technology, which is Jeffrey's awesome organization, his nonprofit. Here's the song. I like to eat fruit when it's ripe and veggies prepared just right, but that can be hard to find. And I know that not everyone is into this as I am, but hopefully once in a while you're buying from organic sources. Well, sure, it may cost just a bit more, but it's all for the future of the world and the farms we need. What do you think your children are gonna eat when all the food is owned by one company? Once they've patented every single seed. I'm not making this up. No, you can look this stuff up, yeah. But don't you pull out your smartphone so soon. Can't you wait till the end of the tune? All those seeds are modified genetically. It'd be nice if we tested them for safety before we start ingesting them thrice daily. But it doesn't seem to be a priority. Yet I see the seas of disease getting deeper and creeping above my knees. It's freezing, no reason to keep from fleeing. But all I need is what I'm eating, and I'd rather eat it whole. Not refined but natural, the way you find it, how it grows. And I'm aware that there are those who think that this is so ridiculous, but I'ma stick with this. There's so much sickness, we'll get through this, but only if we all say no to GMO. If I had the last word, I'd warn you of all the hazards, but these fat cats have mastered getting laws passed faster, before the evidence is explored and not after. So science stays hidden and we're given a disaster. But if enough folks can uncover this hoax, we might be able to expose the dangers of GMOs. Who knows, if we reverse the flow of this trend, we'll send them a message and help it come to an end. So help us all out, read about this stuff, and we might just stand a chance to stand up to the man. We can all raise our hands, demand some answers. When we call their bluff enough, they will be peeing in their pantsuits. Not one study proves this stuff's safe, and it pains me to face the fact that we won't be able to trace anything back, because the labels will lack the fact that it's not actually what it claims to be. Though it might taste the same to the layman, you see, don't you dare say amen for what you will partake in, or thank God for the blessing. They're messing with you, it's made in a laboratory by a human. Your dinner's fake, man. And I'd rather eat it whole, not refined but natural, the way you find it, how it grows. And I'm aware that there are those who think that this is so ridiculous, but I'ma stick with this. There's so much sickness, we'll get through this, but only if we all question what's inside, what you put inside your body. Quit relying on the liars who are smiling from the money that's fattening up their wallets from the processed foodaholics. Profits keep them from speaking about their products, making all of us sick of this stuff. And I'm sick of their games, I'm sick of the freaking fake signs and fraudulent claims. I wanna shake it all up, cause surely there's no team or any kind of machine that's really keeping food clean. I don't consider it clean with artificial crap in my food. While I'm rapping at you, please don't crap in my food. Ew, cause that would be rude. But ain't it ruder to exclude genetic engineering from the labels of our food? Does anybody think so? You will by the end, you will by the end, I promise. I said, what could he be talking about? How is it I never found out that GMOs are all around? Cause they don't make a sound, or they don't come to your town and say, listen people, this'll drop your jaw to the ground. Wait till you hear about what's in the food's DNA. If you don't take action to change, the chain reaction remains. And if we don't demand labels here in the USA, it won't be superpowers that we get when we mutate. And I'd rather eat it whole, not refined but natural, the way you find it, how it grows. And I'm aware that there are those who think that this is so ridiculous, but I'ma stick with this. There's so much sickness, we'll get through this, but only if we all say no to GMOs and vote yes on Prop 37. Thank you guys very much. I will hand it back over to Rachel. Thanks for listening, guys. You can check it out online, YouTube it, share it with your friends. Enjoy. You can find it on YouTube by either Googling, searching Rob Herring, R-O-B-H-E-R-R-I-N-G, like the fish. And the song is called Question What's Inside. And my website is therobherring.com, as well as Twitter and YouTube, all that. The Rob Herring. Thank you.
Wow, that was great. Did he just say peeing in their pantsuits? Good job, Rob. The next speaker coming up is a special guest. He's a surprise guest on the tour. We've had him on a few occasions, and he's an amazing man. He's with Greenpeace USA. He's a board member. He's the founder of Sacred Seeds. He owns an organic farm in Costa Rica, so he's sort of like one of you in a way, only doing it maybe a little further away than LA. But great guy. I won't take much more of your time. Tom Newmark.
Hi everybody. I come to you from the volcanic Central Highlands of Costa Rica. Came here a couple of days ago. I have a farm on the Caribbean slope. Anybody here been to the Arenal volcano in Costa Rica? So that's where my farm is. And I grow ginger and turmeric and holy basil and hundreds of spices. And so I am a supporter and a lover of organic farming and what you do here. And I'm thrilled to meet all of you, and I do want to learn more about your project. There's another project that I'm very involved in. I'm the founder of an organization called Sacred Seeds, Semilla Sagrada, Sacred Seeds Sanctuary.org. It's a 501c3 not-for-profit international organization, and we work with botanical gardens around the world. We are responding to the same issue that you are responding to, which is the horrifying and rapid collapse of biodiversity, the horrifying and rapid abrogation of people's direct connection to the healing force in gardens and in food. We are responding to the fact that every 2 weeks a language goes extinct, and with the extinction of that language comes the great forgetting of all the healing traditions, mythologies, the medicine cabinet of that culture, the spiritual enlightenment of that culture. Every 2 weeks, that disappears. Every second disappearing on the face of the earth is an acre of rainforest. 31 million acres of rainforest a year being crushed, being gobbled by the jaws of a food machine, of a gluttonous appetite for people in the Western world, and primarily the United States, for empty calories that are anti-nutritive and not nutritional. The sun bathes the earth in solar energy, and of the total potential energy created every year by the sun bathing us with energy, 40% of that net primary product of solar energy is consumed by one species, us. So I actually believe that the human species is not inherently damaged and is not inherently at fault, but this particular culture, which has no compunction about annihilating seed diversity and annihilating cultural diversity and annihilating different expressions and different manifestations of healing traditions. There's something wrong about the culture that feels no compunction about ending the multi-billion year play and display of evolution and substituting for evolution the vanity and the glib semi-science of modern science. And what I'm speaking of is when Charles Darwin approached the issue of how it is that we have this great display of life on the planet. Anybody read his notes from the Voyage of the Beagle when he first stumbles across an ecosystem in South America, and he looks out at the rainforest and he says 3 words: why the riot? How to explain this extraordinary biological diversity? And ultimately, many decades later, when he wrote in 1859, and when he published in that year The Origin of the Species, the last thing he wrote in that book is, from so humble a beginning, forms, wonderful and beautiful, have and are being evolved. And that was being conducted by whom? By whom was evolution conducted? By God, by the goddess, by Mother Nature, by whatever life force is eminent within all of creation.
Natural selection.
Natural selection, sexual selection, all the forces that Charles Darwin appreciated. And those forces are being denied their say when human vanity is substituted for Mother Nature, for the laws of nature, for natural selection, however you characterize it. And what my problem, my deepest problem, and this was expressed, I think, most perfectly by Michael Pollan in the 4th chapter of his book, The Botany of Desire, in describing the beginnings of genetic engineering with tomatoes. He said that for all of the Neolithic revolution, for all of the last 8,000 to 10,000 years, where humans have been attempting to farm and gain nourishment in that way, there's been a conversation between humans and their plants. If you want this plant to have a certain quality, then there would be a conversation, there would be an experimentation, there would be a coaxing, there would be a cajoling. But that conversation is now over. And so rather than having the conversations that you all have with tomatoes and the precious stewardship and the curating that you have with heirloom varieties, there is instead a dictate. You will exhibit this property. You will exhibit, you tomato, you seed will exhibit this. You soybean will exhibit this. You will secrete pesticides. You will be invulnerable to lethal herbicides. It's no longer a dialogue with nature, because humans have put themselves beyond nature and are now dictating to the genome that has evolved over billions of years. Are there health consequences? There's no greater spokesperson for that than Jeffrey. I will not preempt him. Clearly, there are health questions raised when we as humans, one species out of perhaps 20, 30, 50, 100 million, gobbling up all of the solar energy, gobbling up 1 acre of rainforest a second, destroying biological and seed diversity. Surely there are serious questions raised whether it's wise for us to be the last generation on the planet to abide by natural selection. The last generation on the planet to be a part of the great play and display of life commenced unknown eons ago, and to substitute instead for it the idea that life is a commercial, patentable item. 2 days ago, the Federal Court of Appeals in Washington declared that aspects of the human genome itself could be patented. So 3 days ago, I felt like I owned my genetic history. Turns out that I don't even own my own genetic history. It turns out that Mother Nature, our evolution, doesn't own the genetic history of plants either. And so we live in a time when it's critical for organizations like yours to be stewards for biological diversity and for heirloom seeds. We now have sacred seed sanctuaries all through the United States, none in this part of the country. We have them at Bastyr College in the Pacific Northwest, Rodale on the Rodale campus in Emmaus, Pennsylvania, the Crow Creek Indian Reservation in the Dakotas, the Abenaki First Peoples in New England, in Austin, Texas, at the campus of the American Botanical Council. We are in multiple locations in Peru. We are in the Orinoco Valley in Colombia. We have places of treasured antiquity, of Ayurvedic genius all through India, hundreds of gardens in India, in Madagascar, in Israel. We need one, I think, in Southern California. And I think I may have just stumbled into just the right place to have a conversation with the right people, check out Sacred Seeds Sanctuary.org. But more importantly, there is a defect in the American political system. It's for sale, right? Citizens United is horrifying. But there's another defect in the system which we can exploit. And the defect in the system, from the vantage point of multinational corporate forces that would like to own the genome of everything that lives, is that we get to vote. And there's this weird concept in the United States called federalism. It's not a kingdom, it's not a monarchy, it's not one country really, it's a federal experiment with 50 different political entities. And so this is the worst nightmare moment come true for multinational corporations, because they can't buy you, and you can vote them out of business. It is the great defect in the American system that elections can be bought and sold, but it's the great genius of the American system that your hearts and souls can't be bought and sold, and you have the power in November to vote yes. And by so doing, I believe that you will help say no to the mistake, the vanity, which has led to this collapse of biological diversity. This is a moment where the great unraveling of that empire can begin. And on that note, I'd like you to meet the warrior who is leading us all into battle, Jeffrey, who, am I introducing Jeffrey?
You're doing great, yeah.
All right, well, Jeffrey's a buddy. I've known Jeffrey for too long, right? I've known him for years and decades. We've been together, we've been great friends. He is my teacher. I'm here, I'm his warm-up act. I'm just having a conversation with you. I've read his books, I've listened to his lectures. He has been the Gandhi against the British Empire. He has been the voice speaking out in favor of genetic integrity before people even knew about the issue. He inspired me in the late 1990s to begin looking at all of the ways in which genetically modified organisms infiltrate the supply chain all through even the natural products industry, where I for many years had my home. They're everywhere. They lurk in crevices that we never even thought to look. They coat products that you didn't even know were coated. You call up the suppliers and you say, are you using archival non-GMO corn for this particular protein you're using? And the reaction was, what? What are you talking about? I remember one time saying to a supplier, we demand archival non-GMO soy. This was in 1999, non-GMO soy. And they said, well, no one has ever asked for that before. And at the time, that was probably the first time they'd ever even heard of the issue. And they said, well, we can do it, but it's going to cost you 3 times as much. Well, that was easy. You do it. You pay the extra to make sure that you're not using GMOs. The point is that I was inspired on my path. I was inspired to focus on sacred seeds. I wrote a poem in 1999 called Sacred Seeds, inspired by Jeffrey's work. So it's a thrill for me to be traveling with him. I'll be his straight man anytime. Jeffrey, take it away.
What a beautiful place to talk about preserving a beautiful world. I want to start, however, with a story that someone told me 1 hour ago. When he was in high school, he was a computer guy, 1976. And he had a modem. And he hooked into a system that he didn't realize was the CIA. This is what he told me. You can decide if it's true. And he read on his screen that they were planning or undertaking to aerial drop termination seeds into developing countries to force famine so that they could come in as rescuers to provide food and extract favors like minerals and resources. And he was called to the principal's office because they tracked him. And he couldn't talk about it until it was on Nova 3 years ago. So it was interesting, and I don't have any idea if in 1976 they were genetically engineering seeds to be Terminator seeds, but they did create Terminator seeds in the public domain soon after, aimed at the 1.4 billion farmers who save seeds. This was the explicit marketing message in the materials by the corporations like Delta Land and Pine, later bought by Monsanto, for the purpose of creating seeds genetically engineered to be sterile. It wasn't the diabolical thing of forcing famine-stricken areas to do business with your multinationals. But it could have been. It might as well have been. Because if these get deployed, and if they get targeted effectively against the 1.4 billion farmers who save seeds, then we are risking everything. The biodiversity that supports our food security, especially at a time of global climate change, is based on the ability for nature to be abundant, and we don't have to tell nature how to do that. But there are millions of seeds different from each other because of the seed saving, of the relationship, of the conversation that Tom talked about, of the conversation, the relationship that many of you have with seeds. And that actually is such a holy alliance. It is the way, it is more than a communication, it is a nurturing, it is a loving, it is a sharing, and it is at risk. Because Monsanto has proven its ability to get farmers to give up generations of practices, generations of seeds, on the promise of greater profits and the projection of lies. And if they do eliminate the biodiversity and force farmers to collect their seeds every year with payment to the limited genetics found in the seed catalogs, then what happens if there's a blight or a climate change? They'll march in with their latest gene, hoping it works. But it may not. And what has supported the safety and abundance may be gone. Now, we started out talking about the Terminator seed, a diabolical plan, supposedly by the CIA, described in a story to me 1 hour ago by this man. But we have documentation of another diabolical plan that actually was undertaken. They genetically engineered tobacco, smuggled the seeds into Brazil, and grew tobacco with much higher levels of nicotine, so it would be more addictive. It was called tobacco loco by the locals because even walking past the plants would get them dizzy. And then they smuggled the tobacco out, and what I'm told is inserted a single cigarette in a pack of 20 to addict the human population in the United States. Kissinger said, to control countries, control the oil; to control the people, control the food. Vandana Shiva said, to control the food, control the seed. On July 1st last year, the USDA told Scotts Miracle-Gro, yes, we will honor your petition, honor your request, by telling you that our laws have no jurisdiction on your genetically engineered Roundup Ready Kentucky bluegrass. So the USDA does not have to look at it at all. Just because of the technical aspects that the genes inserted don't come from bacteria or viruses, so they're not an apparent pest threat. So go ahead, put it on the golf courses, put it on the playgrounds, spray it all with Roundup, have children rolling in it, knowing that Roundup is linked to birth defects and Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and endocrine disruption and cancer. But the USDA was saying, we have no jurisdiction. And of course the FDA, they have no approval process for GMOs. They haven't approved of GMO. They have a voluntary consultation process where at the end of this meaningless exercise, they issue a letter which says Monsanto believes its foods are safe and recognizes it's its responsibility. The 1992 policy stated that companies like Monsanto, who told us that PCBs, Agent Orange, and DDT were safe, could determine if the GMOs are safe without telling the FDA, without telling consumers. Actually, what it did say specifically was that the agency is not aware of any information showing that the foods created by these new methods differ from other foods in any meaningful or uniform way. And that was the excuse given for saying, we don't approve, we don't need to evaluate, no labeling is necessary. That sentence was a lie. 44,000 secret internal memos became public 7 years later, showing that the overwhelming consensus among the scientists working at the FDA was exactly the opposite. GMOs were dangerous. Could create allergies, toxins, new diseases, nutritional problems. They urged their superiors over and over again to require labels. To require testing. And of course it was going to be labeled because it was a food additive, and it had to be labeled if it was food additive. But not until Michael Taylor, Monsanto's former attorney, he became in charge. Not coincidentally, the Bush administration had told the FDA, promote biotechnology. So they recruited a position. They recruited Michael Taylor for a new position created specifically for him. Monsanto's former attorney, in charge of the policy that allowed Monsanto's crops and seeds to get on the market without any testing, notification, labeling. And then Taylor became Monsanto's vice president and lobbyist, and then became the food safety czar in the USDA once again. So getting back to the USDA, they said no evaluations needed for Scotts Miracle-Gro. So I wrote them a letter. And I said, does this mean, because of the technical exclusion, the loophole, that companies can genetically engineer grass to make you hungry? To make you hungry for a particular product? Or to repel kids? So you don't have to see the old guy saying, hey, you kids, get away from there. No, just plant this grass. It repels kids. Or attracts dogs and cats. Or repels dogs and cats. Or changes your mood or behavior. Or the tobacco. I said, if these things don't have a viral or bacterial gene in them, does that mean that neither you nor anyone in the government has any jurisdiction to evaluate GMOs? And they wrote me back. The USDA wrote me back and said, we don't entertain hypothetical situations. So the hypothetical situation is that the GMOs might fail and cause all these problems, but they don't entertain that. So the situation is this. I was kind of, very interested in this story I got an hour ago of a diabolical way to use seeds to manipulate a whole country. And it reminded me of the tobacco, a diabolical way of getting people addicted to products. And this is, unfortunately, been the fate of a technology which is so powerful and so unregulated and so unknown. And it's institutionally unknown. It's so unknown that the biotech industry is going to spend maybe $100 million trying to get you not to know which foods are genetically engineered. And their logic is amazing. They're trying to confuse you by telling you the proposition for labeling is confusing. They spent more money than they'll ever spend labeling products, telling you labeling is too expensive. It's a self-contradictory, ignorant logic, but it's about to descend big time on everyone. So get your umbrellas up. Now, how bad are the GMOs on the market? Let's assume it's not a diabolical intention. It's not intended to hurt. It's intended to sell. So when they put an insecticide called BT, how many people have used BT in their garden? Okay, when you read the can, does it say use as a mouthwash? It says do not take internally. BT toxin, it breaks open the stomach of insects and kills them. It bores pores into their cells, causing leakage and death. And now the gene from the soil bacteria that you guys have sprayed is inside corn and cotton plants, so the plants do the killing. They're the registered pesticides. But there's no label. And we eat the corn and the cottonseed oil. And people touch it in the fields. But they said, don't worry, BT toxin has a history of safe use. It's used by you. But if you look at the actual studies, hundreds of people had allergic and flu-like symptoms. They have specific antibody reactions. Mice have damage to their intestines, immune system responses. So they ignore all of the scientific evidence, even their own scientific advisory panel, in order to get the BT toxin assumption that it has a history of safe use. But the BT toxin produced in the corn is thousands of times more concentrated. It's designed to be more toxic. It doesn't wash off or biodegrade like your version. But EPA says, don't worry. Don't worry your little heads about it, because the BT toxin is destroyed during digestion. Until last year, when it was found in the blood of 93% of the pregnant women tested in Canada and 80% of their unborn fetuses. But don't worry, they say, because BT toxin has no impact on humans. It only infects certain types of insects. Until February, when they found that the BT toxin extracted from Monsanto's corn does poke holes in human cells, causing leakage. So when I talk at medical conferences about BT toxin, they say, my goodness, this may explain gastrointestinal disorders that I've seen in my practice. Inflammatory bowel disease up 40% since GMOs were introduced. Leaky gut, poking holes in the intestines. I had a guy stand up at the lecture last night at the Ebell Theater saying, I want to support what Jeffrey Smith just said about leaky gut. If that is true, if BT toxin is causing leaky gut, the entire spectrum of disease will be enhanced. Cancer, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, autism, inflammation, autoimmune disease, food allergies. And then we have Roundup Ready crops. By the way, this doesn't get heavy the whole time. We're going to lighten up soon. I just have to sort of lower the boom, you know. Or I'll hold our hands, take a breath. Okay, this is the death, disease, and destruction and despair section of the talk. Don't leave in the middle. You'll be totally depressed. You'll have to take pills. We're going to come out the other side with some good news, okay? All right? I just started heavy because, hey, you know, got to shake it up a little bit. All right, back to the heavy stuff. All right, furrow the eyebrows. Roundup Ready crops. So Monsanto scientists found bacteria growing in a chemical waste dump near their factory, not dying in the presence of Roundup, which normally kills bacteria. So they said, great, let's put it in the food supply. This is how they think. So they take the gene out of the bacteria, which resists their death by Roundup, put it into soybeans. Now you can spray the Roundup Ready soybeans with Roundup, not killing the soybeans, just all the other plant biodiversity. And what Roundup does is it sucks up the nutrients, making them unavailable to the plant. It promotes plant pathogens that kill the plant. So now we have soil pathogens run wild all over the country because there's been over a £500 million increase in herbicide use because of these GM crops, mostly Roundup. It's found in the air samples and the water samples, in the rain samples in the Midwest, where I live. So we have this Roundup which promotes plant pathogens, which sucks out nutrients. So we have weak and sick plants. We have animals eating weak and sick plants. They become weak and sick. We eat the weak and sick animals. We eat the weak and sick plants. We eat the Roundup residue in the crops that's inside. You can't wash it off. It then chelates or binds with our nutrients, making them unavailable. So it is a perfect storm of death and disease still with just the Roundup, not even to mention the Roundup Ready gene, which has properties of a known allergen, a dust mite allergen. So if you're allergic to dust, you might be allergic to Roundup Ready crops. And the only human feeding study ever published showed that the genes inserted into Roundup transferred into the DNA of gut bacteria, and may have continued to function, which means long after we stop eating, see, he didn't like it, long after we stop eating GMOs, we may still have these foreign proteins produced continuously inside of our own digestive tract. Now, when they found 93% of pregnant women with Bt toxin in their blood, they're thinking, well, how come so many women have Bt toxin in their blood when it should be washing out very quickly and regularly? They must be taking it in often. But it's not Mexico with corn tortillas every day, so they figured it is that they eat the milk and meat of animals that do eat GM corn every day. So they must be that not only does Bt toxin survive digestion, it survives digestion in the animals, and then the same toxin it survives digestion in the humans, and that's how it gets into the bloodstream. Aha! But I think a more plausible explanation is that the Bt toxin gene transferred from corn chips into the gut bacteria and continued to function. So we have a reservoir of Bt toxin because it's produced inside of us, turning our intestinal flora into living pesticide factories. That's high in the yuck factor. Agreed? Way, way high. These are just some of the problems that should have been evaluated. Now I'm going to just do I got to get to the good stuff soon. So let me finish this up so that we can get to the fun stuff. I'm going to summarize here. I have a film coming out next week. It's called Genetic Roulette, The Gamble of Our Lives. And in it, there's parents of autistic kids that describe how when they took the kids off of GMOs, the gastrointestinal disorders started going away, behavior started to change. I interview many doctors. There's thousands of them prescribing non-GMO diets. They talk about their patients, who I've also interviewed separately, how when they get rid of GMOs, they have changes in irritable bowel and colitis and all sorts of gastrointestinal disorders, all sorts of immune system disorders, all sorts of reproductive problems, headaches, asthma, allergies, weight problems. One woman told me after 25 days on this new diet, 3 days into the diet, no more colitis she had for 30 years. She had lost 10 pounds by then. Now, the humans, to get rid of GMOs, they have to do all sorts of things because it's not labeled. So you can't just choose the non-GM. So they had to go to organic or less processed foods, which brings up a whole bunch of cofactors. Is it the non-GMO diet? Or is it the benefits of organic? Or is it the lack of the strange compilations they put into the processed foods? And some were avoiding gluten and dairy. So it's like, I can't deal with that. That's just way too many cofactors. Until I spoke to the veterinarians and the farmers, because when they took their animals off of GM corn and soy, they didn't switch to organic. They didn't have gluten-free pigs. And the animals got better sometimes within 2 days of things that had been pummeling their health for years. Pummeling their health in 2 days. And if you look at the livestock, the pigs, the cows, the pets, what they're getting better from, the same categorical problems that the American Academy of Environmental Medicine identified as found in the lab animals that are fed GMOs. Reproductive problems, immune system problems, gastrointestinal problems, organ damage, accelerated aging, insulin problems. And you see the same categories of problems in the lab animals, getting better in the pets that switch, getting better in the livestock that switch, getting better in the humans that switch, and the same categories of diseases on the rise in the US population since GMOs were introduced. I don't think that's a coincidence. I think it's a devastating impact of one of the most devastating technologies ever introduced. If you think, you all know nature, you know that it's going to spread its bounty. That's what it does. Seeds do that. Pollen does that. We have no way of recalling GMOs from the gene pool. It's a self-propagating genetic pollution. It's giving pollution a life of its own. And we're exposing everyone who eats and the entire ecology. So it's everyone who eats, all living beings, all future generations. And what we're seeing in this first generation, when hardly anyone is looking, signs of a collapse, of health, even of the technology. The weeds are outsmarting Roundup, the bugs are outsmarting the BT, so they want to bring in Agent Orange crops that withstand half the component of Agent Orange, 2,4-D, acutely toxic. So that's their answer. If they have a problem with one GMO, figure out how to do another one. Are we about ready for the good news?
Yeah.
Thank God. Okay, you ready? All right, how many people during this small talk have changed your diet? Anyone? Anyone's changed your diet? I thought so. How many people have, like, starting to text their kids, don't eat any more GM foods? I had someone said, when we left your lecture, we started texting our kids, don't eat any more GM foods. My son texted back, what's wrong with General Motors? So I just did a concentrated kind of like non-stop machine gun. I could have gone on for another 2 hours, truly, and would have been like, oh God. And if I had the pictures, you would have seen the changes in the liver, seen the changes in the rat testicles going from pink to blue, it's true. You would have seen the changes in the size of the rat offspring from the mothers. You would have heard about the hamsters that had, by the third generation on GM soy, most were sterile, and those that gave birth, a lot of them had hair growing in their mouths. You would have seen, I mean, it gets really gnarly, okay? That's a technical term. So we have a situation here where it is very easy simply to tell people the truth about what's happening with GMOs and change their diet on the spot. So now I'm going to tell you the great news. That's all it takes. It's all it takes. You see, this is not like a big policy issue. We need to change the policy of the US government on global warming, on fracking, on all these things. This is something that can be handled by us. And thank goodness. Because the Obama administration put Michael Taylor back in the FDA. They put the Biotech Governor of the Year as Secretary of Agriculture. They put the Monsanto guy as the Director of Agricultural Trade. They've been worse on GMOs than the Bush administration. And I don't see any administration since GMOs were introduced to have anything other than lockstep with Monsanto. WikiLeaks, the State Department, is basically the enforcement wing for Monsanto and company around the world. So thank goodness this is something that we can take care of without asking for a bailout. And here's how. There was a scientist, Dr. Arpad Pusztai, who later became a good friend of mine. But at the time of his troubles, I had never heard of him, although he was the world's greatest scientist in his field. And he worked at the top nutritional research laboratory in England, or in the UK, in Scotland actually, and one of the best in the world. And he was given a $3 million grant to figure out how to test for the safety of GMOs. And lo and behold, much to his surprise and everyone around him, GMOs were not safe. He fed the rats got serious disorders, smaller brains, livers, and testicles, partial atrophied liver, damaged immune system, potentially precancerous cell growth in 10 days. So what he did was, he went public with permission from his director in an interview on TV, was a hero for 2 days at his prestigious institute, until 2 phone calls from the UK Prime Minister's office, forwarded through the receptionist to the director, ultimately resulted in him being fired the next day. After 35 years, silenced with threats of a lawsuit. They attacked his reputation, never implemented his protocols, a complete disaster, and the beginning of a model of what has happened to so many scientists since. But by order of the UK Parliament, the gag order was lifted on February 16th. Now, February 16th, 1999, it's interesting. 3 weeks earlier in San Francisco, the biotech industry projected a 95% replacement of all commercial seeds in the world within 5 years. Their plan was to replace nature. And now it's not just seeds. Now it's insects, it's fish, it's livestock. They want to patent and own and recreate nature, just as Tom was pointing out. So they were on track for replacing nature. But on February 16th, the gag order was lifted, and there was an overwhelming response by the press. Over 700 articles within a month. And 10 weeks later, the tipping point of consumer rejection by who? Unilever. then Nestle's, then everyone, within about a week. Using GMOs had become a marketing liability. The same motivation that got GMOs on the market, greed and profit and gaining market share by the biotech industry, took it off the market because of the 700 articles of the coverage throughout Europe, which never reached the shores of the US, not coincidentally. So that's why GMOs have been kicked out of Europe, because people know about them. And now they're labeled, and you don't find made with genetically engineered ingredients in Europe, hardly ever, because they know it's a marketing liability. So we started educating consumers about the health risks of bovine growth hormone, Monsanto's genetically engineered drug injected into cows to increase milk supply. I talked to a former Monsanto scientist. He said 3 of his colleagues tested the milk from cows treated, found so much of a cancer-promoting hormone, they refused to drink milk thereafter unless it was organic. One bought his own cow. So we educate people, and now it's now bovine growth hormone. It's been banned in Europe, it's been banned in Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Canada, but now it's banned in Walmart, in Yoplait, in Dannon, in Starbucks, in most American dairies. And we did that. We did that. We didn't have to ask the administration for a bailout. We just said no. And the food companies said, okay. So how many people do we need to avoid GMOs to create a tipping point against all of them? It's not a vote. We don't need Kraft food managers to see a 51% drop in market share and says, great, it's a majority, time to switch out of GMOs. They're not going to say low GMOs, like low fat. There's no... We only have just a little bit of GMOs. And there's no consumer benefit. It's like they don't want to hold on to it because there's that crowd that wants their Roundup. Got to get those BT people, you know, they just love that BT. Just, they can't get it from us, they're going to just buy the spray and take it internally. So no one is looking for it. No one is looking for it. So there's no compelling reason to hold on to GMOs once they put together that the very traditionally rapid expanding messaging that happens, that runs through the US psyche, trans fats, plastic bags, pink slime, GMOs, wow, get rid of them. It's just like a cell signal. If they can see any drop in market share at all that they can attribute to anti-GMO sentiment, it's like, whoosh, gone. So how many people? 5%. 15 million Americans, 5.6 million households, should be enough. We have 28 million people that buy organic on a regular basis. What about moms of young kids? Not for themselves, but for their kids. What about the sick people? What about the progressive doctors? There are thousands now prescribing non-GMO diets. What about the religious people that think GMO means God move over? There are enough people in any one of these categories to drive the tipping point on its own. And with these people, it's not like you have to meet resistance. In fact, most Americans, 53%, say they would avoid GMOs if labeled. In fact, if 9 out of 10 of those are lying, we still get our tipping point. But most Americans still have some level of yuck factor, even though most Americans have no idea they've ever eaten a GMO in their life. So somehow the tinkering of genes, etc., gives people a sense of unease, and I think that's appropriate. And all we have to do is tell them the truth. Now, based on where you were before compared to now, before like a long time ago at the beginning of this lecture, when you were still eating GMOs or not quite sure why you were uncomfortable with them, and now you have a better idea. Compared to that, how many of you are more likely to tell someone else about GMOs? Raise your hand. Okay, almost everyone. So that means the same information that changes your diet and is ready to change your diet out of eliminating brands that you grew up with, that you may get to the cupboard stage, you know, when you get home, it's like, okay, what is it? Some of you are there. Maybe you have to read more, I don't know. But the same information that changes your diet on the spot makes the same message go viral. So all we have to do is plant the non-GMO seeds. And I had no idea I had that influence on you, Tom. It's like, I just wrote a book, you read it, all of a sudden you're like sacred seed guy, writing poems and changing the world. I think that's great. And the thing is, it's like that. It's like I was speaking at the American Academy of Environmental Medicine, spoke to a doctor. She said, every time I prescribe a non-GMO diet, everyone gets better. It never doesn't work. I went to her office in Chicago. We interviewed a bunch of people. All these changes. I said, where'd you hear about this? She said, from you. I had no idea. So it's like we plant these non-GMO seeds, and it's awesomely powerful because it's sticky information. It changes people's diets. It changes people's lives. It saves people's lives and their children and their friends. So we have a capacity now with this information to share it. Now, have you been taking notes? You ready to give this lecture? Maybe not. So we made it easier for you. We have, first of all, how to avoid GMOs, non-GMOshoppingguide.com. I'll say it 3 times. non-GMOshoppingguide.com. That's 2, non-GMOshoppingguide.com. iPhone application. Anyone have iPhone or iPad? Raise your hand. Okay. Shop No GMO. Free, iTunes. Shop No GMO. 4,000 or so non-GMO, third-party verified products. Okay? This has the brands, not the products, so it's you have to look at the actual brands on the shelves to see if they have the non-GMO Project Verified seal, which is the third-party verified seal which we support because it's really good. So we have some of these in the back. Great. So you're already on your way. So that's one thing. 2. Well, that's the second step. That's how to avoid GMOs. But you want to get the word out. Most of you said you want to get the word out more. Here's what we've got for you. Everything you need. The right brain book that he read, Seeds of Deception. The left brain book, Genetic Roulette, with all the technical details. The videos for the visual learner. The video called Hidden Dangers in Kids' Meals. You know how to give that one too. You have the audios for the iPad owner. You have the blogs, the articles, if those people want to speak about GMOs, we have an online training program, 5 or 10 hour webinar. You could take that. You want to get involved with other people. Tipping Point Network, join up online. ResponsibleTechnology.org. ResponsibleTechnology.org. Institute for Responsible Technology, ResponsibleTechnology.org. We have the Tipping Point Network. Join with other people to get the word out. And guess what those people are doing in California? They've totally abandoned me. Because they're now focused on Prop 37. They just took that organization that we set up and just said, well, we're meeting anyway. Looks like this is a world-changing event. Let's focus on that. And I said, okay, great idea. Prop 37. What do you think they're going to do if GMOs are labeled? Knowing that more than half of Americans say they would avoid GMOs if labeled. We've already heard. They whisper, we're going to get rid of them. Wow, what a moment in time. What a moment in time. I mean, talk about what this civilization at this time might do to the world with GMOs if we're not careful. And think about what would happen if we can reverse it right here. Because they're not going to create a non-GMO, unlabeled product for California, 12% of the consuming public of America, and create a different GMO-laden product for the rest of the world. It could be, I hope it is, a non-GMO avalanche. I was going to say tsunami, but I'm actually too close to the water, so I'm just going to call it an avalanche. Cool? Okay. So we have a situation where the leverage here is amazing. It's amazing. First of all, it's a very sticky message now. Everyone's talking about GMOs, or should be soon, because they're about to be disinformed very big time by tens of millions of dollars. So there's a lot of receptivity. People, what's a GMO? What's a GMO? Good. Now that you've asked, here's a book. Click and Send Revolutionary. Send everything out. Become one of the lending library owners. Get the information out to others. We have a whole lending library program. So we have information right here that you can get out to help antidote against the disinformation program that's coming from Monsanto. You're all networked. How many people have a Facebook? Yes. How many people have an email address book? Yes. How many people know anyone else? Yes. Okay, you all have networks. You all know people. You all have incredible creativity and passion. So I'd like to suggest that you think now, truly, really, right now, in this moment, what can I do? Who can I talk to? How best to get the information out? What existing networks am I part of or know about that I can get this information to? And you can find a lot of stuff on our website and another website I'll tell you in a moment. How can I take this information and put it in the networks? So yes, there is individual information you can give out to your friends, etc., to your loved ones, but you're all networked. So what can I do on my Facebook? What can I tweet out, etc., etc.? Think now, and really make a decision now, and not wait till after dinner to think about what you're going to do. But make a decision now, because the information is so potent and real and powerful right now. And then hold yourself to it, or ask someone to do it, because now is the time. Because it's not just for yourself, and it's not just for your friends and your family, it's actually for all living beings and all future generations. And if you think about it, it's not a burden, it's an incredible opportunity. Because when in history, in the entire history of mankind, have we ever had the ability to protect all living beings and all future generations? And so what happens when you do? As the karma of all living beings and all future generations are tied up in our success, I think you'll feel it. I think you'll feel it in the way that you feel the individual conversation you have with the seeds that you're saving and the plants that you're growing. But it's more than that intimacy. It's also an intimacy with a vastness thrown in. A vastness in this time and a vastness in the future. Because as a steward, as taking the steps, taking the decision to be a steward and a protector of this earth, it's an opportunity that's a spiritual opportunity. Because when you step into that awareness, you feel its pulse in your heart, and you know it's the right thing. So it's so good to have us together, working as a team to reclaim a non-GMO food supply. Thank you very much.